Hello, welcome to Home Screen Podcast. This is episode 4. Today we're joined by Ben. How's it going, Ben?
How you doing? You all right? Thank you for having me.
No problem. So this is a bit of a different one. In the previous episodes, it's all been stuff we've seen in cinema, and then we're giving our thoughts and feelings and reviews straight afterwards. Today we decided that we'd rewatch Spiderman Across the Spiderverse. It had a limited run in IMAX cinemas last week, but we missed that, so we've just watched it on Now TV. Obviously, we both saw this when it came out in cinemas last year. Insane film, absolutely incredible. I think just as good as the first one. Well, we'll start there. Do you think it's just as good as the first one? Better? Slightly weaker? How do you think it holds up?
For me, it goes in, like, it does different things for me. You know, the first one was sort of establishing Miles Morales as a character beyond people that just knew him from the comic books, I guess. Whereas the second one sort of like really doubles down on his story, and it sort of shoots him into the stratosphere of like, right, here's where he can go. That's like the longest way of saying I'm not going to answer your question ever. I think visually, they're both very much on par because they're both very, very stylized. I think I enjoyed the second, probably because it's really recent in my memory watching it. Really enjoyed the second one probably more than the first one. I think.
Yeah, I think we both have. I wouldn't say different strengths and weaknesses because there's hardly any weaknesses. I think it is. Yeah, they both have different strengths in different areas. I think the first one felt like a much more traditional linear story of it was just the journey, whereas then this one has. It's not non-linear. There isn't many like time jumps and flashbacks, but it is a bit more of a new way of telling a tale.
It's a little bit of a stop-start kind of thing. Like the opening half an hour, you're not even sort of with Miles. Like you're not even seeing like what Miles has been up to. It's all from Gwen's perspective.
Yeah.
I think that sort of like it puts it on a different sort of
like trajectory. Like from the start, it establishes that it's different.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, there's a lot. I think the way it's set of like it starts with Gwen and then it ends with Gwen with the sort of the super team around her.
Yeah.
The whole film is her basically recounting the events of what's just happened to people who she wants to join for her team, I guess. And then I think, you know, when you move on to the Beyond the Spider-Verse, you'll have Miguel's team versus Gwen's team kind of thing, and it will sort of culminate that way.
I think Gwen is like, obviously it's Miles' story, but when you think about it, Gwen's in essentially every scene apart from a handful, apart from the started section of Miles' universe where he's in the teacher's office, the first fight with the Spot, and then his dad's promotion party. That's kind of the only part of the film she's not in. Like the start, and then as soon as she crosses past him again, she's kind of in everything.
I think now that you mention it, she is. It feels like you said that now. It feels like a lot more like it's her movie.
I think it is. It is what obviously he is the protagonist. I think it is, but it's much more getting closer to being equal. I think the first film she was a supporting cast, whereas in this one there's more of an argument for her to be one of the co-leads.
Yeah, definitely.
Obviously, I mean, the stuff we're going to say now has been said by hundreds of people lots of times, and it kind of goes without saying, but like having rewatched it, different art styles is just mind-blowing. It is quite baffling how they achieved it.
I think the way, like, just the subtleties are brilliant. So just off the top of my head, like the watercolor universe from Gwen's universe, which is, I think, like sort of call back to the way it was illustrated and penned in the comics, in her comic run. It's all like, you know, like your pastel pinks and blues. The way that sort of conveys emotion in the opening scenes as well. To, I think we mentioned it just, like the distinction between 1610 Miles and then Earth 42 Miles. Yeah. His draw, like the way he is drawn is a little bit more angular, a little bit more harsh with like you were saying with some of the lines. So sort of, I think he conveys that sort of. He's more of an intimidating character. Yeah. You don't really know him as well as the Miles that that you spend the entire film and the previous film with. And then the lines on Miguel, some of the lines from that sort of on his shoulders, and they're sort of like
it's almost like architectural
drawings.
Yeah.
Like he's constantly improving himself, constantly improving his kit because he's not. I think with the thing that he injects, I'm not too well versed with Spider-Man 2099, but he's not Spider-Man through being bitten by a radioactive spider. I think he has to give himself the powers, which is why his webs are different, and his suit is almost like
Well, it's almost like it's nanotech. It's
It
not.
reminded me like a nanotech suit, sort of
Yeah.
like MCU or maybe Black Panther kind of thing. You know, it sort of just appears.
Yeah. Well, I guess almost a bit like what's it like, programmable matter, like in the Insomniac Miles Morales games, like all the Tinkerer, all the Underground, their stuff. Yeah, it's just so good. It's kind of hard to know what to say about it, but obviously we can say anything like spoilers and stuff like it's been out for a year now.
Someone's going to be really upset if you don't put a spoiler one in this. Randomly watch it. It's like, oh, I'm planning on watching Across the Spiderverse next week, and
if someone gets this spoiled now, I think it's on them. It's been out for a year. It gets to a point where it's like, you can't gatekeep spoilers for films forever. Like, it has
How
to be
long
a
would
point.
you say? How long would you say is like optimum? Because I think whilst it's still in cinemas, and that sort of gap between it being in cinemas and then being released on streaming or through like Blu-rays,
I
DVDs.
think once it's readily available online, that's when it's fair game.
Well,
for
like
spoilers.
as soon as the release happens.
I think
I'd say like a week maybe after that.
It could be a case-by-case basis in terms of like some films, everyone's so much more precious about spoilers, like Infinity War and stuff.
Yep.
And I guess Han Solo's death in The Force Awakens, some stuff is a bit more gate-kept than others. But then I think in general, like...
Maybe it's just the genre.
But then I don't know whether it's just because like me and I presume we're both, I guess, like chronically online and in like film, Twitter echo chambers and like Reddit and Marvel echo chambers, that we're very aware and acutely aware of like spoilers and when stuff happens. We want to see stuff on the day of release.
Yeah,
so we
yeah,
don't get it
100%,
spoiled.
100%.
Whereas for your average Joe who might go and see Guardians of the Galaxy when it comes on Disney Plus, I don't know how likely that person is to encounter spoilers on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I think great, like a great point with the just being sort of very active on that sort of the Twitter sphere, like X, whatever you want to call it, you know, on social media. Basically, you're in those sort of genres. You're in that sort of realm of everyone else likes films and TV. We'll talk about films and TV. I saw this. You're more likely to come across it. Like I had, like when we were supposed to go and watch No Way Home together, and unfortunately I had COVID. It was during the midst of one of the COVID lockdown kind of thing, when you still had to basically stay indoors if you had COVID. I'm literally locked in my room. I have nothing to do, and I'm like, oh, social media. But then I'm like, I'm gonna have to stay off social media because I don't want to get spoiled for this film.
Yeah, I think it's more so with like TV series, but it was really bad with. Do you watch any of the Star Wars TV series?
I've done Mandalorian, but sort of casual viewing first 2 seasons. I've really fallen off the bandwagon with Star Wars.
I mean,
recently.
It's hard now because it's almost a bit like the MCU. It's a bit more of a mixed bag now.
There's too much.
Well, and not everything can be a gem. And some stuff like Book of Boba Fett, in my opinion, isn't great. But then The Bad Batch Season 2 is actually really good.
I think Book of Boba Fett was what got me, that derailed my Mandalorian watching experience. Because I finished Season 2, was like, this is incredible.
Yeah.
And then, you hear... is this spoilers now? Like, with Grogu disappearing off with Luke at the end of Season 2 and then just somehow miraculously being there in Season 3. It's sort of like, I'm a bit of a perfectionist in the sense of I have to know that. So if I have to watch stuff in order to go and like dip off and watch Book of Boba Fett, I got 2 episodes into that and I was like, I'll get around to it.
And then also like your casual Disney Plus subscriber that someone's like, oh, I'll watch The Mandalorian, but then I'm not going to watch Ahsoka and Book of Boba Fett. End of Season 2, I'm going to say this isn't spoilers now. End of Season 2, Grogu goes off, and then the first episode of Season 3, oh, Grogu's back. And it's like, so that was the big emotional crux of the finale of Season 2, to be undone in the first episode. Like,
like I feel like with your finales of one season and then starting up in the first season, the following season, do you think it feels like a cheap shot to just instantly have that rectified? Like, I think prime example for me is Rick and Morty Season 2, the end of Season 2, where he, after, is it The Wedding Squanches, I think it's called, where, the wedding ends up being a bust, all of his friends are, like, captured or they've run off kind of thing, and he basically just, is it to save his family, like, to save the family, he just decides to just turn himself in?
I think so.
But then, like, right at the start of the 3rd season, like, within an episode, it's like, oh, it's all sorted, kind of thing. It's sort of like, you'd think maybe they get a 2-parter out of it.
Yeah, I think... I mean, it's a massive tangent, but like getting back in terms of like I was trying to say about like the spoiler talk was like when Ahsoka aired, when that was coming out week by week, the episode would come out on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, and then on the Thursday morning they would post like character posters. They post like 3 character posters for each episode, and they would be like the big reveals of the episode.
If you were like a couple of days behind.
What like one of our friends like Jake was like on like traveling somewhere. and then he was like trying to avoid spoilers and stuff, but then the Star Wars Twitter just spoils it like one day after it comes out.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like...
You get like little trailers for the episodes as well, don't you?
Yeah,
Like, oh, catch this pivotal moment in this episode, and you're like, why?
And it's like the internet and the fandom can safeguard against spoilers only so much, but then when the companies will use those moments to try and get people to watch, then it's kind of like there's not much you can do at that point. I'm going to put the other pizza in really quickly and cut this out. Alright, pizza break over. So Spiderverse. So
Yeah, returning to the...
So, what was your reaction when you saw it the first time with it being a part 1? Did you feel like cheated, or did it leave you like an Infinity War feeling of like hunger for the next part? How did you feel?
It was a very much sort of Infinity War syndrome a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, going to the bathroom afterwards, washing your hands and just sort of staring blankly into the mirror, and you're like, what am I going to do now for?
Yeah.
At least with Infinity War, it's only a year. You knew with that gap, you had Captain Marvel, and then you had Endgame.
Yeah.
Was there another one in between that? Anyway, but you knew that like in a year, I've only got a year to wait.
Yeah.
With this, it feels a little bit different. Like I remember reading or hearing somewhere recently, Jake Johnson, who voices Peter B. Parker, he's like, no one's recorded voice lines yet, so I think Lord and Miller are very... Is it Lord and Miller?
Yeah, it is Lord and Miller, yeah.
They're very much in the sort of stages now of like still writing that.
And it's also the writer's strike and actor's strike, but I think mainly
100%.
Mainly the writer's strike. It was, I forget how many months it was.
Pushed back so much, didn't it? Like,
well,
look at Deadpool.
It was the majority of last year. It was from like spring last year to, was it October, November?
It was back end of last year.
That will have put essentially a whole year roadblock.
So it wasn't that it hindered production of films.
Everything
stopped
Hollywood halted, and because of that as well, like even I forget the name of the British one, but even like British, like the SAG equivalent in the UK also was impacted, and like British actors and British crews, would have also had affiliations with America, so the kind of whole. I mean, obviously, Eastern cinema and Bollywood and everything would have kept going, but a lot of Western cinema just like halted for it.
Yeah, it was big. I mean, obviously, I'm like yourself. I'm a bit of a film connoisseur, but I think you're a little bit more in depth with that sort of stuff with your career and stuff.
I think that's like, because I did doing a film degree. Like I was very surface level on the actual like cinephile aspect. Like some people were like, I don't know, like watching Pulp Fiction and Seven on repeat and the classics and really like in the know of all like film lover circles. I was never really into that, and it's only since COVID that I actually then got on that bandwagon with like Letterboxd, ranking films, watching all of the classics, and then getting like really invested in like film podcasts and box office numbers. And so it's kind of been a more over the past few years thing, but it is fascinating.
I think that I get where you're coming from with the whole sort of film buff thing, but I feel like I'm much more on the level of, if I watch a film and I enjoy the film and the film resonates with me, I will happily debate, talk about, praise that film with anyone. Yeah. I love talking about films, and I love talking about TV, and I've watched this, what have you watched recently? Purely, how many times have I texted you, I'm looking for something to watch, like, especially over COVID, I'm looking for something to watch.
Yeah, well, I mean, and then you got me that book of like what to watch, which I use, which is useful.
Yeah. Things like that, like it's sort of like growing your library of films and TV.
Yeah, it's really hard to like put a finger on that feeling. It's almost like you feel like you're educating yourself by the more films you watch. You feel like you're kind of like deepening your knowledge, even if it's like watching some like stupid rom-com.
Yeah.
Like,
I think on that same page though, the amount of times I've like finished a film that is, it's Oscar worthy, it's getting nominations thrown out at it, and it's a masterpiece, it's brilliant, it's this, it's that, and I'm sat there and I'm going like, have I missed something here? Like, most recently, Banshees of Inisherin.
Banshees of Inisherin, yeah.
I fell asleep in the cinema watching that. Because I'm thinking, Colin Farrell, Brendan Gleeson in Bruges, quality film, loved it. Thinking, spiritual successor, same sort of humour maybe. I don't know why I just did not get that film. Yeah. But then it's like, am I less of a film buff for not understanding that film or not appreciating that film?
Not at all. I do think that like it kind of gets to this time of the year when it's almost like the world decides, right, these are the award-winning films, and kind of everything else gets shunted out of conversation. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like, there's plenty of other good stuff as well, but everyone just kind of crowds around these. Even if like I think that Barbie is great and Maestro are great, I wouldn't say they're 10 out of 10 masterpieces, but then they're getting talked about so much, and it's kind of like everyone loves them almost because it's like the world has now collectively agreed these are great films, and it's kind of the unpopular opinion to not like them. And I think they are both good. I think they're both 4-star films. But yeah, that's a conversation for
I feel like Barbie and Oppenheimer, it lasted what? It felt like 9 months, 10 months.
Well, I can't remember when it started. I think it was like the Oppenheimer trailer. I remember watching it in the airport before we went to Stockholm, which was December 2022. And there was trailers before that. And I think there was like murmurings of like the Barbie Oppenheimer thing like at the end of 2022. And then it kind of built into like Barbenheimer, and then it released and both got over 1 billion over the summer, which is nuts.
Just that one market exec on a Tuesday afternoon just realising, hang on a minute, this is getting released the same day as Barbie. What should we do about it?
I don't even know how. Like I've heard like interviews and stuff, and like because Christopher Nolan apparently always releases his films in July. All of his films always release around that middle week of July.
Summer blockbuster season.
Yeah, like Dark Knight Rises, I remember seeing on my birthday, I think in high school or college. And so he always releases around the same release date. And there was a whole thing where he stopped working with Warner Bros. And stuff. And then Barbie being a Warner Bros. Film, it was kind of like people were saying, oh, did Barbie purposefully gatecrash Oppenheimer's release date as like spite? Apparently then there was like a Variety interview with Margot Robbie, was friends with one of the producers of Oppenheimer, and she was like, we're not really moving out as you release yours. And then it kind of became like friendly competition, and then the internet jumped on the bandwagon. So
yeah, I don't understand why it was ever going to be a problem though, because you're not going to have a 10-year-old going, you know what, I would go and watch Barbie, but I'm more interested in Oppenheimer.
Yeah, and it's just they fueled each other because they were so different.
Yeah,
in so
100%.
many different ways. We've not talked about Spider-Verse.
Yeah, for a podcast episode that's sort of supposed to be around Spider-Verse.
I'll just retitle this. Ben came
Spider-Verse
round and we
then
just
some.
chatted.
But yes, I think returning to the original point that you made with Spider-Verse, you did get that sort of feeling that there was more to it. I think I remember, the whole scene where he's getting chased by all the alternate Spider-Men.
Yeah.
I'm thinking we're a good. I don't know why I was checking watching the cinema, but you're thinking you're a good hour and a half, hour 45 into this now. This is going to have to wrap it up. And I think it was at that point that I sort of realised, this ain't going to be a clean ending here.
No, it was when he just got back into his room in Earth 42 and Gwen was outside his room in 616.
And then it's
1610. At that point, I was like, this is a cliffhanger.
It
this
slowly hits you, doesn't it? And you're sort of like, oh, okay.
But it's kind of really well done. I think it was on the Empire podcast. But this is something I felt as well. People saying that they love it and they think they'll love this movie even more when it's a complete trilogy. Like
Empire Strikes Back to Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, or like Lord of the Rings, Two Towers to Return of the King is like, this is currently I think this is like, I would say 10 out of 10. There's hardly any faults with this, but I think to quite a lot of people, this is like teetering on the edge of a 10 out of 10. And then once the third one's out, this will then become a piece of the finished trilogy. It'll become even better.
I do feel like it has a lot of points to pull from in terms of like comic book storylines and different characters. Yeah. And there's characters there from the Raimi-verse. You've got characters from the Insomniac Spider-Mans. It's sort of, where would it sit in sort of, let's just tell a linear story with these characters and see where it goes kind of thing, because then it's sort of like, oh, how would you build a sequel on from that? But then if you take the film too far in the other direction, where it's just not a rush job, but it does a very quick job of setting up characters and arcs and what happens, and then it just sort of like leaves a lot of dangling threads, a lot of unresolved plot points.
Yeah.
I think you played a dangerous game in regards to...
I think it's dangerous.
Will that get greenlit for a sequel? Because if the film itself doesn't do too well, like say, bottom line is box office numbers, if it's not going to make the studio the money, the studio's going to be like, why would we put another one on there?
I think that they must have signed some deal guaranteeing there'd be a third one beforehand. But with it winning the Oscar for Best Animated Picture, and probably even will also get a second one this year, I think the third one was inevitable.
I think like you say, the second and third were a package deal, but the first one does a very, very good job of telling that nicely, I wouldn't say contained story.
Yeah.
And it has little sort of sprinklings, like the way the first one ends with Gwen sort of like spotting and seeing me again, the way it ties into the second one.
Yeah.
Whereas the second one, because it has that sort of foundation to it, it can sort of play a little bit more risky, I guess. Whether or not that third one was definitely guaranteed or not.
The riskiest part of it is like, how will casual audiences perceive this and perceive the cliffhanger?
If you've not seen anything else in the you've not seen the first one, you've not seen any of the Spider-Man films.
Me and Charlotte watched Into the Spider-Verse back in COVID times, and then we watched this a few months ago, and I always had to like, I think I put on like a short, like 5-minute YouTube refresher of the first one. I don't think it's inaccessible, but I think it's a bit more impenetrable for casual audiences, this film being very clearly a part 2 of a part 3.
Yeah, I think that you'd say it's a little bit more as a diehard fan of Marvel or Spider-Man or DC or anything sort of that has a sort of an established fan base.
Yeah.
As a diehard fan of that fan base, if you do go and watch any media, TV, film, and there are like little bits of Easter eggs there, I think it's a more rewarding watch. It's when it starts getting in the way of enjoying it as a casual that I think you start to have problems. Like if you walk off the street and you see a film and there's like little references like, remember when we did this? And it's sort of like, no, this is the first time I'm watching this film. If you get it and you know it, fine. It's like, oh, that's a reference to the last film, or that's a reference to the old TV series this is based on. As a casual viewer, you don't have that, so you just sort of like, I didn't get half of this film.
Yeah, like I do kind of envy, but I am just also like curious about what it would be like watching what most modern Marvel content, whether it's Spider-Verse, Across Spiderverse, or the MCU, in terms of like, as a casual viewer, how is that? And like, do the references, did it just kind of seem inaccessible and borderline cringy?
It's like my dad watching Guardians 3.
Yeah.
My dad loves the he loves the Guardians films, so I watched Guardians 1 and 2, great. Not really asked about Marvel.
Yeah.
Obviously Guardians 3 takes place after Infinity War, Endgame. And is it Thor Love and Thunder as well?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's sort of sat watching the third one, and he's like, he knows like little bits. He knows like oh, they're on nowhere now. Fair enough. I don't even think he watched the Christmas special at that point. He just didn't have a clue. He's like, where's Gamora? The temptations just be like, why is Gamora? And he wouldn't have got that either.
I know, but yeah, just picturing like casual people that like there'll be some people that will have seen Endgame, hopped off the Marvel bandwagon, and then 4 years later, like, oh, we'll go and see Guardians 3, and then people will forget. I mean, not to just generalize and presume, but people being like forgetting that this isn't their Gamora. This is 6 years prior Gamora that's been brought forward that doesn't have the pre-established relationship, and the film does a good job of showing that. But
and he just missed that because I won't say that he's ignorant to the MCU. It's just that it's not his bag.
Yeah.
But then he's sort of missed out on that experience because Guardians 3 for me is probably like top 5 MCU.
I think that's in my top. That is awesome.
Top 5 might be a little bit much actually. Maybe, definitely top 10. I don't know about top 5.
I mean, my order always changes, but my top 5, not in order, is Infinity War, Endgame, Guardians 3, Winter Soldier, Civil War.
Winter Soldier is up there for me.
But then on another day, I would also put Doctor Strange up there, Homecoming up there. Yeah, it's very hard nowadays.
There's just that many to fit. It's impossible to. It depends what kind of a mood you're in as well.
Yeah. So to wrap it up, have you seen anything recently that you'd recommend or you want to like say anything about?
I don't know. I've probably mentioned this to you separately. I rewatched Daisy Jones and the Six.
I've still not seen that.
Recently. Well, I say recently, this week. Amazon Prime, single series. I got the book. When I went away on holiday to Ibiza, I just thought I'll take a couple of books with me. First one that I read, I finished it in like 2 days, and I was like, really, really good. It's about a rock band in the 70s and these two sort of polar opposite sort of heads of the band, which is Daisy Jones and then this other guy called Billy Dunn, and it's just how they sort of make each other better as songwriters and sort of how the relationship develops, but it also is what sends the band down a bit of a rocky path kind of thing.
Oh, right.
The series is great. There's obviously little changes between the book and the series, as there always is, but 10 episodes, about an hour a pop. If you like that sort of 70s era of rock, sort of, like Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah.
The music's great. Like, I've recently just bought the soundtrack they released. Like, there's a big part in it, like where they record an album together. I got it on vinyl and it plays brilliantly. It's literally like listening to a Fleetwood Mac album. It's incredible.
Oh, sick.
I really, really, really rate that one. It's not going to blow your mind or anything, but really enjoyable, I thought.
How many episodes is it? I mean, I just saw on Letterboxd it's 510 minutes, which isn't very helpful. It doesn't show me how many episodes.
Yeah, you're looking at 10 episodes.
Oh, that's one season.
10 episodes, one season. So there's only the one book. I don't really think there's much scope for a sequel. So it's just a sort of one and done adventure kind of thing.
And that was last year.
It came out last year. Yeah, I think it's up for like to do with music. It's up for a Grammy.
Oh, cool.
I think.
Oh, nice one.
Because we were mentioning this before, like how the time frames are really weird. It doesn't run like January to December, which would be so much easier if it did.
Because Golden Globes, Oscars, BAFTAs, well, I guess then also Critics' Choice and SAG Awards, they all have a really weird cut-offs and times and stuff.
So they cut it off for a certain time, and then you've got your whole period for your considerations and stuff, which is
But then
I don't understand it myself.
But then it's hard to pinpoint when does stuff come out, because like Killers of the Flower Moon was at Cannes and like a bunch of film festivals.
I feel like if you're at film festivals, you'll see films like a good 6 to 8 months prior to it coming out.
That's why we went to see The Holdovers, the new Paul Giamatti film. We went to see that at Leeds Film Festival in November because it's a Christmas film that looked incredible, and it's only just come out in UK cinemas like 2 days ago. So we went to see it at Leeds Film Fest because we were like, if we wait till it to come out in January, it won't have the same impact because it's after Christmas. And I don't want to wait till next December. So yeah, that's decent. Things that I've watched recently. I mean, we can just talk about it briefly, but Saltburn.
Oh, we've done Saltburn over.
I've unfortunately
over yonder.
watched Saltburn.
Unfortunately.
To be fair, it really had me. I was really along for the ride for the first 3 quarters, and then it dropped off a cliff. And I'm not going to spoil, but you know.
Oh yeah, it's a recent one, so we're gonna have to tread carefully here. But yeah, it is.
It gets too stupid too fast. And
I wouldn't say stupid, but I think it just escalates. It's literally the Ron Burgundy meme. Like, this escalated very quickly.
But it's like it gets to a point where it's almost like there's bits of it that you could see coming. You could see the big crescendo to the big moment happening, and then it could have done 1 or 2 more things then stopped, but it kept going. And it just was almost like...
It's such a polarising film. I feel like, for me, it's like... I'll say I compared it previously to Midsommar. It's like Midsommar. I'm happy I watched Midsommar. Would I watch it again? You know, I've got a Saturday night in.
It's not an easy
Would I watch
watch.
it again? Yeah. No, wouldn't watch that one again.
Yeah, and obviously because of the plot twist, you watch it again, you would watch it totally differently in a different light.
Yeah.
It's almost like the meme where he's like, stop, he's already dead. That was literally like me watching this film. I was like, please roll the credits, and then it cut to a new scene. I was like, no, just stop.
Yeah, so it did. So you think you'll stop in a minute? We'll stop in a minute. I really rated Rosamund Pike and Richard E. Grant in that, though. I thought they were great.
They were. I mean, the acting's great.
The acting in it is quality. I think it's just sort of a bit deranged. The director getting people to do some of the bits that they did in there. No spoilers. But,
and then there's like an interview with Barry Keoghan, and he was breaking down his career, and he was like explaining, I won't say what, but he was explaining the grave scene, and he was like, yeah, I asked for a closed set, and then I just kind of did what felt right, and I was like, really? Did no one want to?
He wasn't told to do that. It's just like, I'll just see where the afternoon takes me.
Just see where it happens. Yeah, did no one fancy saying cut? Did anyone be like, Barry, you didn't really? I think this is a bit too far.
Maybe you just didn't hear it. I think it's done wonders for Sophie Ellis-Bextor's musical career.
I mean, that will have shot
resurgence.
Back up.
They're releasing it as a single on vinyl again. I'm speaking about vinyl far too much now,
but yeah, Saltburn, I think I would recommend because it's like obviously it's insanely popular. It recently joined.
Just big at the moment, isn't it? So yeah, jump on the bandwagon and give it a watch. Because I feel like if you're talking about films, the film industry's winning kind of thing. You know, you talk about it in a good way, in a bad way. If it gets people talking about it, it's good. It's good for film. It's good for cinema, right?
Yeah, and it's kind of even like it's when films reach a point where it's like office conversation, like almost like water cooler conversation. Like a few people at my work are like, oh, have you seen Saltburn yet? Oh yeah, I've seen it. And kind of like it's kind of nice that a film is kind of popular and hits on the trend, and then a few people that you wouldn't normally talk to about film are talking about that. It's like, So,
like if you have like a cinema club where you go like with your mates maybe once a month to go watch a film.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about what films we can watch. Let's talk about films that have recently come out kind of thing. But like you're saying, yeah, having someone who's sort of, I hate using the phrase, like we've said it so much, but casual viewers.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, I think like I could do a whole hour-long discussion about how just like I've just gotten so into cinema and the culture and film loving, and how like it differs, and how like different audiences will have different viewing experiences and stuff.
I feel like that film there won't be the first, not the first, won't be the last, but it is one of the ones that it's so polarizing. Some people will be like, yeah, I loved it, great. Other people are like, what the hell was going on there? Yeah. Kind of thing.
Well, yeah, because it's popular, and like I was going to say, it's recently been one of the few films that's joined the 1 million watched group on Letterboxd. 1.39 million people have watched it, according to Letterboxd. So like, it's very popular, and because it's popular, that will then further the cycle of more people being like, oh, what's this? I've heard about it, let's watch it. And then it's so shocking. So I would recommend watching Saltburn. I would just be a bit cautious of the ending.
Yeah, don't watch it. Don't watch it with your parents.
Don't watch it with your parents. It would be a good recommendation. Yeah. That was a good chat.
I was going to say I can talk for a bit, and I do apologise for that.
No, honestly, like we could talk for hours about just like, even though
Not about Spider-Verse, clearly.
we didn't talk much about Spider-Verse. I think I'll title this like Spider-Verse plus general film discussion.
Across the filmiverse.
Right, well, thank you very much for joining.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
No problem. If you've enjoyed this episode, make sure you give us a follow on Spotify, rating, super appreciated, and all of our social medias will be in the episode description. Thank you, and we'll see you next time. Bye.